Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Jacqui.
And it is just lovely to see you face to face this
morning.
Been missing that. Amy, at the beginning of the service, I was encouraging our young folks to take a grown-up and take them into their own little tent, their safe space, just as a teacher, as a mum, as a grandmother. But are there psychological reasons why that's a good thing to do?
Absolutely. I think it's really important for young people to be able to talk about with a trusted adult about what their experiences are, those that make them feel happy, those that maybe sometimes can cause a few worries, and those that can make them feel sad as well. I think whenever you've got a trusted grown-up or an adult to speak to, it really helps sort of make sense about what might be happening, but ultimately what can we do to help things feel that wee bit better.
So what would you say is the adult's role then in going into the tent with the child? How should they be modelling or helping their children?
I think adults have had, and parents and carers have had such a tricky job over the last few months, being that sort of anchor, that safe space for a young person to come and share about what this experience of lockdown has been. And I think that for an adult, it's about how we model sort of that response of actually you can share these worries, you can share these thoughts, and that's okay, and I'm here to hold those, to help make sense of those, but ultimately to see how we can make things better. That's hard at the moment whenever there's so much uncertainty still remaining in the world, but those are the sort of key things that we feel are really important whenever we're supporting young people.
That's helpful. And I'm just wondering, what do you think are the big issues that are being thrown up just in general for our young people at the moment?
I think there's been so many things that have been so unusual in terms of what young people have experienced over the last number of months. They've lost so much of what they've known in terms of their daily routines, of that day-to-day life, of what they wake up and expect to happen. There's a lot of loss overnight, loss of education, loss of friendships, whether that be with teachers at school or staff or with their friends, the activities as well, and the adults they connected with. So there was lots of loss of opportunities to connect with others, but that routine as well. Like we're creatures of habit, we like things to happen and we like to know what's happening, and that was all taken away for adults as well as for young people. So that's been a big process of adjustment to find that new norm, to work around this new routine and lockdown, and then we're asking children and families and adults to change that all again as we come out of lockdown, that those routines are going to be changing.
Yeah, and that is really, really hard. I have to say, I have found coming out of lockdown much, much harder than I found going into lockdown. Are you finding that's true for young people as well?
Absolutely. I think, at the start, there's very much, when we're thinking about work, speaking with teenagers, and it's like, well, I don't want to be meeting up with my friends, but having to sit 2 meters apart, that's really, really hard. I'd rather just be able to see them, in person, be able to sit beside them. So again, as we're coming out of lockdown, I think young people's experiences of that will have been very different to ours as well. It's hard. It's been a really hard process, and looking at how we've done it has been about thinking about those key experiences of reconnecting again, and where that might happen, whether that be over a garden fence or in the local park. Those are really important experiences for young people, to think about how they reconnect with what has been lost over the last few months. But that very much needs to happen at their own pace, and in a way that they feel able to manage that as well.
And have you found, as you've been going out to the park with Joseph and Hannah, have you found anxiety there amongst the parents, amongst the children?
I think at the start there was a lot of, is everybody, are we standing at the right distance? Are the kids? And I think, a local park's a really good example of where young people are coming back together again with their peers, and using those sort of social rules and sort of norms, and figuring things out again, whether that's sort of turn taking for the slide or problem solving together about how do we get the flying fox seat back up to the stand again. So it's been really lovely to see young people sort of re-engage with each other and work out and use some of these sort of skills that they've maybe not been needing to use as much, but also for adults as well. It's maybe being a place to sort of share their experiences as parents and as friends, and thinking about what this experience has been like looking after young people through these few months as well.
And I'm just wondering, Amy, do you think that there's, it might take some time for things to be really thrown up till we really see what effect it's been having in our young children.
Absolutely. I think, what we've seen from, this pandemic is actually there's not one part of society or the world that it doesn't reach, but sometimes it takes time to filter and hit those places as such. And I think, the long-term impacts of COVID-19, I think it is probably going to be a while before we see the true impact of that on our young people. But there are things that we can do right now to support them in terms of being available to them, being curious about what their story is, because not all of them are going to necessarily be negative. I think about Joseph at home, and he's really proud to tell people that he's got a great grandma who survived the coronavirus, and
Wow.
and he wears that as a badge of honour of did you know. So I think the starting point of wanting to hear what their experiences have been, what have been their story, and then thinking about how we can just help them adjust back into what this new routine is going to look like is a really good protective way to help sort of mediate the impact of maybe what is yet to come that we're not sure what that is.
Yeah, and I suppose in the midst of that, a wee bit tolerance.
Absolutely. I think we've all needed an awful lot of patience over the last few months and grace just to see our way through what this has been, because it's been an upheaval for us all, but also for our young people during this time. And they've had to live with adults who are also having to do things a bit differently, and we have to appreciate that's been hard for them as well.
So Amy, what has lockdown been like for you and Ed and Joseph and Hannah?
It has been intense. It's been a really, really busy time. Like so many families, we've been juggling work, we've been juggling, continuing to go into work as well, not necessarily working from home, the loss of school, but engaging and doing the home learning, the loss of nursery as well, and all those experiences, and just sort of muddling our way through that and just seeing and trying just to do the best that we can each day, because that's all that can be that's all that can be asked of any of us through this period, and just sort of recognising that actually there's going to be days whenever there's going to be lots of big deals, but the next day might bring a lot of little deals, and that's okay.
I hope that's really encouraging to you all. I certainly found that very informative and very helpful, Amy. So thank you for coming along and sharing your expertise this morning. Thanks, Amy.